Hey, what's going on, No Nation? It's CJ Wilson here with DoakTalk. I am your host, here to bring you guys some breaking news. FSU finds their quarterback in the transfer portal, and they go with Thomas Castellanos. That's right, FSU zeroed in on the transfer quarterback that they wanted, and that was Thomas Castellanos. I'm going to jump into it in a second. Before we get started, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. All right, guys, here we go. FSU has Thomas Castellanos has committed to FSU and decides to transfer over from Boston College. You guys should be very familiar with Thomas Castellanos and some of the things he did against FSU and just his time at Boston College. Going back to his junior season, if you guys remember, he had 2,200 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, along with 14 interceptions. He also had 1,100 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns. So we talk about 28 total touchdowns in the round, 3,000 plus total yards. He is the fifth. He was the fifth ACC player since 1996 to have 2,000 passing yards and 1K rushing yards. Pretty elusive, athletic guy. He was also Auburn, Missouri, and Vanderbilt were also teams that were interested in him within the transfer portal. That was the 2023 season. So he had a head coaching change, and Bill O'Brien is hired to take over the Boston College program. His passing statistics were a lot better. He was a lot more efficient. The passing numbers weren't as impressive as far as 2,200, but he threw for 1,300 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions in 2024 for Boston College. Completely different system. And Bill O'Brien doesn't really ask a lot from his quarterbacks as far as running, so he only had 194 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Now, Thomas was benched at the tail end of the season. I forget which game it was in favor for another quarterback down the stretch for Boston College, and he decided to leave the team and enter the transfer portal from there. Now, there was a lot of speculation in regards to him sticking it out with the team and all that type of deal and quitting on his teammates, which I get 100%, but at the same time, it's two sides to the story in regards to that. And I'm not sure exactly what Thomas's story is, but I do know just from past situations with Bill O'Brien, he can be kind of uncomfortable to play for for certain quarterbacks. So that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to hold that against Thomas as far as, coming to FSU or anything like that. That's in the past. He decided to come to FSU and commit to FSU. Now, prior to Boston College, he did transfer to Boston College from UCF. Who was the UCF head coach? Gus Malzahn, the current offensive coordinator for FSU. Gus recruited him to play quarterback for UCF, of course, and compete with Plumlee Riles, who was the quarterback at the time at UCF. He played in 5 games at UCF before transferring out there to Boston College. And in limited action, he was 9 for 16, 75 yards, 120 rushing yards, and a touchdown. So to say the least, Gus got his guy, so to speak, within the transfer portal. This is a guy that Gus Malzahn pretty much zeroed in on within the transfer portal as far as the guy he would want to coach and a guy that he felt like would be the perfect fit for his system moving forward and exactly how he wants to run it. So what does Thomas brings to the table? He brings ultra athleticism, pretty much Jordan Travis-esque, maybe even better than Jordan Travis in certain degrees as far as running the football, being elusive, avoiding sacks within the pocket, and things like that. He's a very dynamic runner. He can kill you with your legs. He's the type of guy that, offensive coordinators fear in regards to breakdowns and containment and things like that, because if you don't contain a guy like Thomas Castellanos and take the wrong angle, whatever it may be, he's a guy that could take a 5 to 6 yard run, 70 yards to the house. Now, passing is a question. Also, his height may be a concern as well too. He wasn't as efficient, like I said, in 2023 for Boston College. He was a lot better in 2024. Still missed a lot of throws in certain situations. Now, maybe that could be something that Mike Norvell and Gus could try to challenge him on to get better at for this 2025 season and moving forward for FSU. But nonetheless, Thomas Castellanos is the guy at quarterback. And if you guys remember going back to the 2023 season against Florida State, one of the few close games that we played actually came down to the wire for that team. Thomas Castellanos was the driving force in regards to the offense that Boston College was doing. A lot of dynamic runs for us and just scrambling around in the pocket against us, rather, and just scrambling around in the pocket and making throws downfield on busted coverages and things like that. So, like I said, Gus Malzahn got the guy he zeroed in on within the transfer portal, the guy he was comfortable with, of course, recruiting him, very familiar with Thomas from the high school ranks. And also, hell, we recruited Thomas as well. He's from Waycross, Georgia. We didn't recruit him to play quarterback. FSU at that point in time wanted him to play running back. And he was considering FSU along the lines, but went with, like I said, Gus Malzahn and UCF, who offered him the opportunity to play quarterback. Now, will FSU be done within the transfer portal as far as grab another quarterback? In my opinion, I can't say if they would be done or not, but in my opinion, I would definitely look into taking another transfer portal quarterback. I know how crazy that sounds, but as you guys know, Luke Krumholtz announced his intention to enter the transfer portal. So if Luke goes through those intentions and actually submit his name and leave the program, now you're down to a few quarterbacks on the roster. Of course, that's Trevor Jackson, Brock Glenn, and I know people don't want to hear this, but there's also speculation and possibility that DJU could possibly come back next year for FSU as well. But at this point in time, I really would just say Trevor Jackson and Brock Glenn as your only quarterbacks, along with Thomas Castellanos on the roster. So you will have to address it, in my opinion. Of course, you get Sperry, the true freshman quarterback. So that's possibly 4 quarterbacks going within the season. In my opinion, I'm not sure if that's enough because that backup position could still be kind of shaky for FSU. So depending on who's available and what the guys as far as FSU, Mike Norvell, Gus Malzahn, Tony Tokars are looking for as far as what they want within the quarterback room. But in my opinion, I will possibly look to add another guy within the transfer portal as well, from a depth standpoint, competition standpoint, and try to solidify a guy that could possibly win that number 2 spot, because you're really not sold on what you have on the roster. Now it's going to be pretty interesting to see how Trevor Jackson develops over the spring and into the next season and things like that, as far as his development within Gus and how he performs within this offense. That'd be something to watch as well, too. But as of now, Thomas Castellanos is the guy that FSU went with. Let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this decision. I know there's a few other quarterbacks that were talked about that were linked to FSU to a certain degree. Caden Salters, specifically at Liberty, it was stated that he would be possibly taking a visit to FSU at some point in time. Let me know what you guys think, and if FSU hit it out the park within the transfer portal within this acquisition of getting Thomas Castellanos, or you guys aren't so impressed and feel like they should have went in another direction. Make sure you guys let me know in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Go Noles. What we do know for sure, though, like I stated, Gus got his guy, so we can see how that develops for FSU for the 2025 season. Tap in with DoakTalk.